don't wanna hear it. I'm getting tired of all your little twisted words. Keep 'em coming and find me running and telling me you love me is the worst one I ever heard. Stop your lying. I've been losing patience. Why are you wasting all your precious time? You said you'd be honest. You broke your promise. Now do yourself a favor, darling. Walk right out my life. No, I can't be the one that's always telling you to say something real, something real. No, I can't be the one that's always falling for those things you like to say. So tell me how you feel. Stop your lying. I don't like the way it sounds when you tell me everything's gonna be fine. Know what you're doing, so you better get moving. You think that there's no way that I'd see through you every time. No, I won't be the one that's always telling you to something real, something real. No, I won't be hey, the one that's always falling for those things you like to say. So tell me how you feel. You've been getting everything all wrong. Hey, I'm not one to ever play along. You've been getting everything all wrong. I won't play along with you. You've been getting everything all wrong. Hey, I'm not one to ever play along. No, no. You've been getting everything all wrong. I won't play along with you. Stop your lying. I don't wanna hear it. I'm getting tired of all your little twisted words. Keep 'em coming and find me running and telling me you love me is the worst one I ever heard.
Good Sunday afternoon, UCLA Radio. It is DJ Masakoi, Daniel Lee, here on this beautiful Sunday, 2:04 p.m. You just listened to Stop Your Lying by Sophia Wackerman, who is in the station with us today. How are you, Sophia?
Hi, I'm doing well.
All right. Sophia is one of my close friends here at UCLA. Very glad to have her on the show, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
It's
too.
like 2 weeks in now?
Yeah.
2 weeks into 2019.
My gosh.
It is the 13th. Week 2 is slowly approaching us, but that's okay. Nice little Sunday to relax your day.
Yeah.
And that rhymed. That was very beautiful.
beautiful.
Anyways, Sophia, just a tradition on our show. What we're just going to do, take 3 to 5 minutes. Tell us just who you are, what your background is, how you got into UCLA if you want, the music you make, the influences you have, any dark, deep secrets, things that keep you up at night, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's my name. I'm Sophia Wackerman. I am originally from Australia, Sydney, Australia, but I moved here when I was 4. I come from a huge family of musicians, so that was kind of, it was my calling, I guess, but I was lucky to have a family that kind of led me in that direction anyway. All the guys in my family are drummers, all the girls are singers. So it's a good time. So I had a lot of musical influences from the start. My mother was a singer, so she was my first inspiration. She's the one that kind of got me into singing and stuff, and I just never really stopped. So, yeah. So I'm at UCLA now, and which was kind of not the plan for me, but I'm really, really happy that I ended up here. Because originally I wanted to go East Coast and to like a music conservatory. And I wasn't even going to like apply to UCLA just because I didn't think I would really get in. And I was like, okay. But I had this college counselor that was like, they have a great jazz program at UCLA. Like if you wanted to do jazz, you could totally go there and be in LA where the music is. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would never get in there, but I'll just, apply for for laughs.
Right, right.
And then so when my acceptance letter came, I was like, oh shoot, like this changes everything, you know? So it was a hard decision to make. It was,
Right.
you know, it came down to like UCLA and Berklee College of Music. Berklee College of Music is a great school also. I had hopes for that for a long time. And I got in, which was really cool. But just all signs kind of told me in the end to go to UCLA. And I was like, you know, it wasn't the plan, but I'm just so happy to be here. And I wasn't really a jazz musician, like, so to speak, but I figured that jazz is kind of one of the more complex forms of music.
Right.
And I feel like if I have a good grip on that and the theory behind it, then that can really translate over to any kind of music. And, you know, it is a fun time. Like, it's a great genre and so much rich history to it. And so I'm having a great time learning about it thus far.
Thus
And,
far, yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, and I'm loving every day.
That's cool. So actually, let's talk a little bit about that because I feel like UCLA, there's a very big divide between like South Campus majors and like North Campus majors.
Yeah.
And like I feel like the music kids are kind of like off on their own and no one really knows what they do, but they know they're there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's not very many of us.
Yeah,
We're
so
hidden.
what's like a day in the life of, per se, like a UCLA music student, particularly in jazz studies, because that's what you're predominantly doing?
Sure. So it also really depends on what your instrument is. The way it is at UCLA is it's kind of divided between instrumentalists and vocalists, which I'm kind of against, really. Like,
Right.
I wish they kind of integrated us more with the instrumentalists, because, you know, you learn a lot from each other and you glean a lot from, you know, exchanging information and experiences and everything. But as a vocal student, I take musicianship, which is, you know, that's a class that you take with other instrumentalists. But I'm also taking a vocal combo class, which is super fun. It's kind of like solo singing. It's like a solo singing class, but with a group of other singers. And so you kind of help each other out and, you know, give advice and critiques. And it's taught by Michelle Weir, who's incredible. She's, you know, a vocal arranging goddess. Like, you know, she's fantastic. And you also have your private voice lessons, which the private voice teachers are Barbara Morrison, Michelle Weir, again, and Ruth Price, who I haven't met yet, but I've heard great things. And Barbara Morrison is also absolutely fantastic. Jazz legend. Yeah, she's fantastic. And so, yeah, that's kind of the freshman year courses,
Gotcha.
you know, standard courses for a, you know, vocal jazz student, I guess.
And do you think there is, because like you were saying, predominantly UCLA isn't very known for music, at least in the common eye.
Right.
Maybe with like your contemporaries, like you said, your vocal teacher said that UCLA had a good jazz program. So how does that affect predominantly like the kids within the program itself?
I mean, we kind of just, it makes for a lot of like collaboration, I feel like, because we're kind of like not very known, and so we're, you know, left to kind of fend for ourselves, and we have to like have each other, and with that kind of little combos form and little bands will form, and because we want to, you know, get out there and start gigging and whatnot, and playing music and just doing our thing, and like, I don't know, I have some buddies that we're kind of conspiring to start a band too, and we just met for the like first time the other day and just kind of did a jam, and like, you know, it's like stuff like that happens. It's like the creativity is more, though it's like contained, it's more like, I don't know, intense with you know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely get it. Yeah,
I might not be making any sense, but
for speaking about music, because this is kind of what this is about. Let's dive away from school for a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your music, just in general. Like, maybe not even, because I know we just played your single that came out last year.
Yeah.
So even before then, like, what kind of things were you doing before, like, songwriting-wise? And then how did you end up getting to fully produce that song and actually putting it out there?
Okay. So my first kind of, I mean, I've been dabbling with songwriting since a very young age, maybe like 8 or 9, and my first kind of songwriting inspirations were like Carole King and like Sarah Bareilles type people, you know. And I had studied classical piano for a long time, so piano was like my instrument, and so I would always just kind of pair that with voice and try to, you know, pluck out some chords and all that. But, you know, the quality of the songs were not quite up to par, so to speak.
Right.
You know, at 8 or 9 years old, like, it's not really a, you know, like intellectual topics or anything. But, so I kind of picked up songwriting, like, much later. Like, my senior year of high school, I really started to kind of dig deep into it. I don't know. I'm kind of sick of love songs. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. So that's where I kind of start usually. I start from a more, like, I love the idea of taking something painful and turning it into something beautiful. So, like, that's where I kind of try to start the songwriting process for myself. Not saying that, you know, like, love songs or any of that are, you know, uninteresting or anything, but there's like a lot of great love songs out there. It's so common, and I feel like there's so much more to be said. So with Stop Your Lying, that kind of, I don't know, it came from a little bit of an aggressive place, and like,
Right.
like a hurt place, I guess. And it kind of took a lot of like bluesy influences, like a little bit of blues, a little bit of rock, and I love playing with harmonies. There's a lot of like harmonies on the track if you heard it. That's kind of my main thing is like harmonies, and I love, you know, vocal arranging and all that. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, my process for like subjects, and I love kind of just messing with chords and for the music part and all that, and chords and melodies, and oh my gosh, what was I saying? You lost my train of thought. The process of putting it together. I had a really, really long summer break last year in between high school and starting on the quarter system at UCLA. And I was bored. I was so bored for a long time. And so I thought to myself, like, okay, if you want to start writing songs and being a, you know, full-on musician, you better put something out. And so I decided, okay, I'll write something and put it out. Like, that'll be my summer project. And so my dad, he's a musician, as I mentioned before. He has a little home recording studio we have set up in the back. And so I was like, hey, Dad, can I use the studio this summer for this project? And he was like, yeah, sure. So I kind of, you know, occupied his studio, you know, took it over for the summer. And he helped me a lot with, like, the engineering parts and taught me a lot. And it was nice, you know, like, father-son bonding. But it was a really, really fun process. And I learned a lot about myself and the way that I work. You know, I can be really picky sometimes. But, I mean, that's just part of the process. And it was super fun. And I loved putting it together. And I want to continue doing stuff like that for, you know, as long as I can.
Yeah, and I think also there's so much talent in the world, but a lot of those people, it's very hard to actually execute. And I feel that what you said with your project, like getting down and saying, like, okay, this summer I have a buttload of time, I'm going to do this and finish this by the end. But a lot of the times it might not happen, you know what I mean?
For sure.
So how do you think, like, that process, how do you think you actually went about doing rather than saying?
Because I really genuinely had the time. Like,
okay.
Honestly, most of the time when I say I'm going to do something and I don't end up executing it, it's because, like, I'm so swamped with other stuff. Whether it's like school or, you know, music groups or whatever. It's like, just genuinely don't have the time. But this summer, I just had absolutely nothing to do. So I was kind of forced to, you know, get it done and, you know, execute what I had told myself that I was going to do. And I don't know, my problem I find a lot is, like, I start something and I never finish it. And so it felt really, really rewarding to actually finish something that I had started. And So I want to keep having that feeling and hopefully,
Yeah.
make more music and finish making music.
Yeah. And I feel like once you get that ball rolling, it just keeps going downhill and it gets a lot easier.
Exactly, yeah.
Speaking about Stop Your Lying and your dad, talk to me about like that, like you said, father-son relationship. How was that dynamic? Because you said you come from a family of a lot of musicians, a very supportive family with a lot of musicians that kind of pushed you into this direction and kind of supported you along the way. How was that, necessarily, because you can work with any engineer, you can work with any producer, but it being your dad, how did that kind of affect you, especially with, songwriting that can be very intimate sometimes?
For sure. So my dad was, really great during the whole process. He was really generous to let me use the studio, and I admire him, with all my heart, and I look up to him still. But we do have creative differences, and so it was a little bit frustrating sometimes, like being in the studio, and he'd be like, "All right, like let's do this," and I'd be like, Wait. What? I don't really want to do that. That's not kind of how I hear it in my head. How about we do this? And he'd be like, well, it's better if we do this. And I was like, it's just the kind of that, like,
right.
And it's just because we're so close, like that kind of happens. And, we had a few bickering moments in the studio. And like, I feel like, when you're working with any family member, that's destined to happen here and there. But it was a really great experience. And I got to spend a lot of time with him before I went off to college. So that was really fun.
Right. And then I feel like that kind of like bickering, so to speak, can be really amplified because like you are related. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Of course.
How do you, as a singer-songwriter though, a lot of the time is spent kind of alone, whether it be with like your guitar or like your piano, just kind of like strumming and like kind of like making lyrics up here and there.
Yeah.
I know we've collaborated like once and then we got the Q1 like swamp on us.
Yeah.
But at least for, your music with your colleagues over at Schonenberg, how does that like collaboration go into play? Especially as a singer-songwriter, maybe you're not as in tune with like the whole band setup, or maybe not. How does that kind of like play out?
It's a new experience, and it's really cool. Like you're hearing everyone's different ideas, and it's mostly kind of more musical ideas. Because I mean, like the other day when we had that jam session with a potential band, we were kind of just playing around with chords and swinging on jazz standards and stuff, and so it wasn't so much like lyric writing, but we were discussing it and we were saying like I would probably be the one to write lyrics, and I'm totally, if they have ideas to bring to the table too, like totally down for them to pitch in and like with that side of the songwriting process. And yeah, I don't know, but musically it's more of a collaboration, and I really love that because like I think more brains are better than one sometimes, and yeah, like keep each other in check and everything.
Right. And the thing is with your music, I feel like, is there's a very solid sense of style and a lot of sense of like influence, and like like what it like you want it to sound like. And I remember you were telling me about Bishop Briggs' production.
Oh my gosh.
So give me a little information on kind of like your influences and how they play into not only your songwriting process, but kind of like the tunes that are going in your head every day.
Sure, yeah. My number one favorite artist for these past few years has been Hozier. That kind of bluesy rock. Oh man, he's got such great lyrics too, so poetic. I wish I could be half the poet that he is. But no, his stuff definitely plays a huge role in my songwriting, and I kind of like his chord progressions and his style, his production style too. I really would love to kind of take elements of that and hints at it in my music sometimes, and also with like Bishop Briggs, like she's this really strong female voice with, like kind of, an aggressive style, if you will. It's not every song of hers is a love song,
Right.
like so many artists. But yeah, and she's got this like great kind of fusion of a genre. She's kind of bluesy, she's kind of pop, and she's a little bit of, excuse me,
You're good.
still recovering from a cold. A little bit of like electronic stuff too. So it's just, it's all these different genres kind of going on at once, and it makes for, a really, really great sound. And so I kind of pull from those styles a little bit. Production wise, that's kind of what I gear towards.
Right.
And what I really admire. So.
Right. So speaking of Hosier, let's play a couple of your songs that you picked out.
Woohoo, yeah.
We'll have a little intermission at the halfway mark here, and we will get back to you and have a little bit more of a chat with our dear friend Sophia.
Oh.
Welcome back, everyone. If you are just tuning in, you have come in at the right time. Today, we have Sophia Wackerman here on UCLA Radio, Cold Emails and Hot Coffee, my close friend. We are now going to ask Sophia a question I've had for a while.
Yikes.
You look scared.
I'm scared. I'm kidding.
No, I'm just kidding. So I guess you were talking about the jam that you had with the potential band, but other than that, what's the next move?
Next move? Well, we are continuing our education at this fine establishment, UCLA. So that's where it's been for week 1 of winter quarter. But we're also, we are keeping on writing songs and hopefully releasing like maybe an EP. I'm thinking an EP for this year.
Okay.
If time permits.
Gotcha.
Like schedule's crazy with academics and all that. You would know. But yeah, if I find the time this year, I would really, really love to release an EP because I just, I love doing it. I love making music, and the more you have out there, the better. And if people listen, great. If they don't, whatever. It's your music. I don't know.
And then for the EP, are you talking about with other people? More going to be a solo project? How is that going to work out?
Probably more of a solo project,
Okay.
just because I've got so many songs under my belt that I'm kind of aching to share with people. I always kind of like send my potential songs to my friends and like my close, friend group. And I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And obviously they're biased because, they're friends. But I would like to kind of share those songs with more of the world than just my close people. So.
And let's talk a little bit about the bias thing, because I feel like that's the hardest part. Like either way, getting either very, very true critical feedback or very, very plushy marshmallow kind of like, oh, I like you're my friend kind of feedback.
Sure, yeah.
So as far as when you're writing something, how do you distinguish between something that you're like, yeah, this is it, versus something that you're like, yeah, this ain't it, chief?
Yeah. Write for yourself, not for what you want other people to think. I think that's the key, because so many people these days just write for like what they think will get radio play or what they think will sell and be a hit, and that's not the way to make progression in the music world. And I don't know, I feel like it's better to be unique and original and be vulnerable with your musical ideas and face a lot of criticism than to just add on to the pile of top 40 songs. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. So let's build off of that. How do you think you could, because I feel like everyone, like when you're writing something, you're like, is this me being myself? Like you kind of have like that identity crisis. So like, has there ever been a song where you wrote and you're like, this is truly what's coming out of me?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, how do you get there? At least for you.
You kind of just, this is so cheesy and I hate myself for saying this, but you really just gotta dig deep into your soul. Like, not necessarily with even the lyricism part of it. That was not an English sentence, I'm sorry. But with the music too, like I love playing with chords and I love straying from, the 1, 4, 6, 5, like chord pattern, standard pop music kind of chord patterns. And yeah, I just, when I get like a really crunchy, weird chord that's super dissonant and like you're not, your ear doesn't want it to go there, that's the kind of stuff that is like, whoa, okay, like that's my soul music.
Yeah.
And you know, when I've written a few tunes with that in mind, and it just, those are kind of the ones that really speak to me as like a, this is your music, like, you know, and stuff with a crap ton of harmonies and vocal stacking, and that's the music that's like, hey, that's you in a song form.
Right. And then as far as finding that sound, how long did that take you? Was it just kind of always inherent and you're like, yeah, when I make stuff, like this is gonna be the thing? Or like, have you been like experimenting here and there, trying to like see what works best for not only like your voice or anything technical like that, but just for like who you are as a person releasing music?
It really is more experimental. Like, you know, you try everything, you know, you try a bunch of different things and see what works best for you. And I'm still finding my sound. Like, I don't even necessarily have it pinpointed at this point. I feel like Stop Your Lying, it's kind of, is very, very me, with that kind of like aggressive, I don't know, soul rock kind of vibe. Yeah, the vibe of that is really me. And that's why I had the confidence to release it, because I knew that I was, you know, not trying to be someone that I'm not. I have written, you know, other tunes that I'm skeptical of and being like, oh, this is not really me, you know. But I, you know, with future music, I definitely want to try to be as genuine as possible and true to myself and to my sound. And because, like, I just really think you shouldn't write music for everyone else. It's a personal experience. You know, if it's just an added plus if people resonate with it.
Right. And speaking about resonate with other people, your song, I feel like we're going back a lot to your song, but you know, it is your song, you're here. It's been playing like it's almost it surpassed 50,000, right?
Oh, I'm not even sure.
Something like that.
I'm kind of afraid to check sometimes.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, I think it was like 40,000 something.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Maybe it's at 50. I don't know.
Okay. But my question to you is, I think you're one of the very few people that really blast themselves out on like social media or just to other people. Because, you know, there's a lot of people who will literally post day in and day out like, hey, check this out, check out my SoundCloud, or like check out my Spotify. I've never seen you like do that like once. But at the same time, like everyone that knows you knows like the talent you have and just genuinely just wants to listen to it.
Oh.
Do you think that's just like the talent speaking, or you're just kind of sitting back and enjoying like the ride, or what kind of like efforts did you make to actually like not
Promote
only
it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say promote, because promote is very like structured. I think yours is just like get it in front of people's ears and have them like actually like listen to it.
Sure. Well, when it was first released, I actually didn't realize it had to come out. I was actually hanging out with you and like the whole crew.
The squad.
Were hanging. Yeah, the squad. We were in your tour. It was one of like the first nights of college, and I got a Snapchat from my friend Judd, and she was like, "Listening to your song, it sounds so great." And I was like, how are you listening to my song? It's not out yet.
Right.
And then I checked on Spotify, and there it was.
And there
I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, you guys, my song came out, and you were all like, yay. And so after that, I kind of did like a social media blast. Like I posted like, okay, like Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, like here it is. Listen to my song. Okay. And then I just kind of let it marinate.
Let it simmer.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, I didn't want to be super annoying about it.
Right.
You know, and like, no offense to people who do self-promotion.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of nobility in that, and I respect that. I'm just, I don't know if it's because I'm kind of shy. Like, I don't want to be all up in people's business all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to seem narcissistic or anything, you know, like, oh, listen to my song, listen to my song. Because, like, if people are interested, they'll listen. And if they're not, they won't. And I don't want to waste people's time, you know.
Right.
You listen to what you want to listen to. And I think with, like, the numbers, you know, on, like, the however many, I don't know, 1,000 listens I got was very largely attributed to the show choir community, because I did show choir in high school, and it's a really, there's a lot of people, but it's also a tight-knit, very tight-knit community. So I think the word kind of got passed around a lot within the show choir community, and I'm still convinced that it's all those people just listening to it multiple times. So, which is just, I love that so much.
Right.
And shout out to, the show choir community. I will love you forever. And so I don't know if people really know about the song beyond that. So I don't know.
I think that's really cool though, because you're getting these, I wouldn't say plays, but you're getting the attention from the people that truly want to listen to you. You know what I mean? Sure. But moving on from that though, what's it called? I had a question, but I completely lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
Yeah,
it happens.
It happens. Yeah. What were we talking about? Show choir, and then before that, the plays.
Promotion or self-promotion.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, I completely forgot. I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all good.
Huh. Anyways, so I guess another thing is, you said you play piano, right?
Yeah, more or less.
More or less, right. And you said you were classically trained. So as far as, because you're predominantly a vocalist, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So does it, hinder you that, maybe you can't play certain instruments? Or, how do you, marry those two things together for you? Because you said, chords-wise, you're very, you like playing chords, kind of messing around and, figuring out what works with your voice. But how do you, truly get, lyrics, instrumentals, and marry them together?
So I am a melodies person and a chords person before I am a lyrics person, for sure. That's just the way my brain works. My brain, when listening to a song, my brain always focuses on the musicality of it, and then secondarily the lyrics.
Gotcha.
So when songwriting, I'll usually kind of get a little tune or some chords, and then I'll go back and fill it in with lyrics, which is sometimes makes for a very artificial sounding, lyrics.
Right.
And I find that my favorite songs that I write, I kind of write melody and lyrics at the same time. It's when that wave flow is kind of on the same
wave. Yeah.
Yes, I am not forming coherent sentences. But yeah, when the melody and lyrics kind of are on that same wavelength, that's when I'm like, okay, I dig this,
And do you think when you're sitting down either to put down chords or just kind of make your own lyrics, do you think that comes out of a spur of inspiration, or do you have a set schedule that you kind of adhere to more or less?
Definitely more spontaneous and more random spurts of inspiration. I can never be all right, at 3:00 I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a song. I can never do that, because I'll just be staring at blank pages for hours. It's more when I'm, driving home from the grocery store, and I'll just be doobie-doo-doo-doo-doo, or whatever. Be wow, that is, a very catchy tune that keeps on running through my mind. I need to write this down. I need to sit down and sit on this for a while. And I'll probably when I get home, I'll go to the piano and kind of plunk it out, and then maybe, put some words that fill in the spaces. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be, set in stone or anything. And everything is subject to change all the time. But that's kind of more of the process for me. It's very casual, not very structured at all.
Right. I specifically remember you texted me over winter break out of nowhere, and then you're can we change this lyric to this phrasing? And at first I was what is she talking about? And then I remember oh yeah, that one thing we wrote in week 1 of quarter 1.
And back then I was a little bit skeptical of it, but I was nah, it works.
Right.
But then I was just walking down the street one day, and then it came to me. Comes. I was no, it has to be this. It has to be this. Yeah. And so then I was like, can we do this?
Right. And also as a solo artist, do you feel like, I remember you talking about being like very picky when you were actually recording with your dad. How much of that, how do you distinguish, or not necessarily distinguish, how do you stop yourself? Because I think being picky is like really good because it makes you kind of really put effort into what you truly want in certain things. But how do you like tell the difference between being picky and just being like too hard on yourself?
Ooh, that's deep. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know. I guess sometimes I can be really hard on myself, but I mean, I feel that that's constructive in a way. And you know, everything is subjective too. So like, what I'm hard on myself about, you might be like, oh, it's like, why are you being so critical of that? Or, you know, vice versa, like with a different like section of the song or something. I don't know. I guess man, when it starts to hinder, you know, the process of like production and getting things done, I guess that's when you're being way too hard, critical. You know, and
right.
It's taken up everyone's time, and I feel like that's when it probably crosses that line.
If I may ask though, what are you more or less like the most critical about in like your process?
I guess the way my voice sounds.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Like yeah. I'll do typically way more takes than I anticipate, you know, for a verse or something. Like,
and why?
Because I guess I really, and this kind of, I shouldn't think this way, but I really care about how, you know, how people hear my voice. Like, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, she's a really terrible singer. Like I want them to be only like, oh, she's a kind of terrible singer. You know, like I don't know. I don't know. My voice is kind of, since it's my instrument, I feel that I have to like be really solid with it. You know, I can't half-ass it. So.
But why do you think? Because what's it called? Because a lot of people, especially in our friend group, we think like the strongest aspect of a lot of your music is the voice. So do you think it's just kind of because it's yours, or?
I guess so. Yeah, it's very vulnerable. Like it literally is me. Like, and I know I advertise myself to people as a singer first and foremost, before anything else. Like, so I feel that since I present myself that way, I really have to come through with it, you know, and
definitely
back myself up with, you know, the voice. I don't know, I guess.
But I think that's with a lot of people. I wouldn't necessarily call it like perfectionism, but conscientiousness, or something like that.
I'm very aware
of your right. And I think that's also plays into the fact as to why your music sounds as solid as it does.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Yeah, no problem, dude. But before we go, though, I want to ask a little bit, other than your music, kind of, I asked Charlie on the previous show this, if there's anything non-musical that you do, like ritualistically, that kind of like helps you get through the day, kind of, because I know like being in college can really be stressful sometimes. Is there anything that isn't musical that helps you not only with like the musical process later on, but just like your life in general?
Tea, beyond anything else, helps me through life. I will talk about tea for hours, so I won't go off on a tangent or anything. But oh my gosh, there's just nothing like a good cup of tea to help you get through the day. You know, English breakfast, chamomile, Earl Grey, you name it, I'll drink it. Yeah, you name it, I'll drink it. Except for throat coat. Throat coat is terrible, and I will always firmly stand by that opinion.
How do you make your tea? Do you steep it yourself, like with a kettle, or like do you have a bag?
I usually just, classic tea bags. Gotcha. Or I have a little, what is it called? It's like where you put the tea leaves in it.
Infuser?
Yeah. I've got a little. My friend Jade, shout out to Jade, I love you. She got me this for Christmas, a little tea infuser.
Okay.
And I have it in my dorm, and it's the best thing ever. So I'll either do that with tea leaves, or I'll just get, classic tea bag and the hot water and just let it sit for a few minutes and, add some honey or, whatever. Yeah.
Oh. And like, is it just like has it just been, when did you start doing kind of like getting all hyped up about tea?
Forever. I mean, my mother's side is English and Australian. So,
gotcha.
you know, they've always been tea people. And my mother, from a very young age, taught me how to make tea. And it's just been part of a very
Integral.
Imperative part of my life since.
Your blood is tea.
Yeah.
Basically.
You know how you're supposed to be like 70% water or something? It's tea. I'm like 70% tea.
Well, that is great. Once again, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank
This has
you
been
for
a really
having
good
me.
talk.
This is so
Yeah,
fun.
very relaxed, nice talk. I hope you enjoyed your French vanilla coffee,
Thank you so
courtesy
much. I
of
did,
the
yes.
UCLA vending machines.
It's good quality vending
It
machine.
is. Yeah, it is. It is better than you would think.
Much
you know what I
better.
mean?
Yeah. No, I thought this was like a Kirkhoff coffee or something.
Yeah, it's better than getting like coffee from an actual coffee shop and then having it be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, lower your expectations and you will be gifted with great coffee.
Great coffee. Yeah. Well, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you if you tuned in. This has been UCLA Radio's Cold Emails and Hot Coffee with DJ Masakoi and Sophia Wackerman. And up next is, of course, Nice Girls, Nice Books, and Nice Big Thoughts here on UCLA Radio. Have a great day.